Oh, yeah. And we're going to record this meeting. We would like to put it on our website, but if anybody objects to, having this recording put on the site, just please let us know, and we will not put it on there.
And one last thing, if you have a comment or a question, please use your raise hand function. Did you already say that, Tony?
I did, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was too busy admitting people and trying to find the record button. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
No, you're good. All right. I think we can go to the next slide there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's all good. All right, so the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or as we all love our acronyms, MTP, is a federally funded transportation plan, a plan for federally funded transportation projects over a 25-year horizon. So the projects that are included in this plan have to be financially feasible. So, Noah, your suggestion for a monorail from Haverhill to Lawrence, that's probably not going to fly here. We can see what we can do, but probably not. But the projects that are included in this plan will then be eligible to be in the Transportation Improvement Program, which is a 4-year funding program that is developed by our Metropolitan Planning Organization.
5-year.
Oh, 5-year, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks.
All right.
So here's a brief overlook of our process for our planning effort, starting today with our kickoff, our project kickoff. And today we really hope to, set the tone for our public engagement and the objectives, strategies, performance measures, and projects that we're going to be exploring throughout this process, and then eventually end up in the final report. And I'll pass it over to Betsy so she can run through a deeper dive of the public engagement process.
I will unmute myself first. All right, thank you. So as Tony has shown, our public engagement for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is we've broken it up into 3 phases. We are currently in phase 1, which is the kickoff meeting, as well as doing community events. We wanted to take advantage of the summer and all the activities that are happening outside that make it easy for us to reach the public and get general public input. We have selected a few as you can see, a few events that we're interested in tabling at. We just tabled at the Lawrence Salsa event, which was really fun. It was great to see people and getting input from the general public about what they think is important and what their priorities are for transportation and what they think needs to be focused on. The next phase is dives a little bit deeper. At that point, we'll have more data available, and we're going to be meeting with municipalities to review projects that we already know that they're interested in obtaining federal funding for. We'll be asking them about studies and programs that they're interested for their communities. We will also be doing more sub-regional general public input sessions. And then we will also do some issues-based sessions, like we'll probably get an environmental group together, or federal lands groups, or we might look at having a meeting focused on business and things like that. So, and during this entire period, if anyone has a community organization in which you would like us to come and speak to your constituency about their transportation needs, please get in touch with us. We are more than happy to come and talk to your constituents. And then the last phase is we put everything together, including all the comments and feedback that we receive, and we create a draft document, which then will go out to public comment, and we will hold official public hearings. And from that information, the comments we receive from people, we'll incorporate that into the final document, and we'll bring that before the Metropolitan Planning Organization for endorsement. And that should be final endorsement by June. So we have about a year to go through this entire process. The Metropolitan Transportation Plan starts with a vision and some goals. We do have the ones that we've used for the past few regional transportation plans. And the essential vision is that we will have a multimodal, safe, efficient, and cost-effective transportation system that supports our community's livability goals of economic vitality, high quality of life, preservation of natural resources, and healthy lifestyles. And then we've listed the goals here for you to see, and these are essentially become our chapters in the past RTPs, which include maintaining the existing infrastructure in a state of good repair. So that includes roads and bridges and sidewalks. So what is the state of those today? How much will it require to improve those? And what are the priorities among those? And then looking at how does our transportation system meet the needs of our communities and our businesses to promote economic vitality? How do we ensure that our roads are safe and our transportation system are safe for all users and all modes? How do we create a better multimodal transportation system? And frequently this is often focused in on bicycle and pedestrian transportation, connections with transit. How can we make our multimodal transportation system help people transition from single occupancy vehicles into these other less polluting options? We also have a section on promoting environmental sustainability. Some of the things in that area include air quality as well as stormwater. And then finally, while equity will be looked at across the board, we do have a focus chapter on transportation equity where we take a deeper dive into how our system meets the needs of people of all ages and all abilities and all backgrounds. So at this point, we are going to stop what we're saying so we can hear from you on what are your communities or organizations' transportation goals, and we can take that and use that as part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So at this point, if you want to raise your hand, I can't see any hands raised at this point, Tony, so you're going to have to call people.
Yeah, no problem. Yep. Destiny.
Hi, my name is Destiny. I'm with Groundwork Lawrence as a Lawrence Volante member, which is literally working within this work, trying to make Lawrence a more like travelable city, like trying to increase different modes of transportation. So the ultimate goal of it is to create a cultural and mode shift in citizens and try to get them to get out of their cars and trying to see if people can ride bikes, if they can walk places, we can increase public transport use. But that all comes with some infrastructure, but first and foremost with conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this question could be answered from, an organizational lens or what you're hearing from people, your neighbors, your constituents, anybody.
And what you personally think.
Yeah.
Like, what are your
Absolutely.
personal goals? What would you like to see as a goal?
One thing that I was thinking about was like community development, that falls within transportation. If you think about your neighborhood streets, and sometimes like we've talked about our own neighborhood streets being used for, as cut through streets and kind of limiting the neighbor to neighbor interactions that could happen if, there was less traffic on a street or something like that. So, or increasing the pedestrian nature of a downtown to get more people downtown and building that, social connectivity and community development.
Any other comments? Oh, yeah.
I can't find my raise hand button, so I'm just going to.
That's okay.
This is Rick. So I'm kind of approaching this from a couple of different points of view, but more from the advocacy point of view than from representing the community. Although there is a lot of concern right now in Newburyport about traffic calming and neighborhood streets and how we can look at using the transportation network, or balancing use of the transportation network, I would say. So providing more opportunities for safer bicycling and walking. Transit would also fall into that category. I think looking at how we incorporate those types of things into land use planning and development review and so forth. And then, so that's from the, I would say, the citizen view, and also my role as president of Newburyport Livable Streets. But also from a wider, more regional point of view, looking at the, thinking about Coastal Trails Coalition, the Coastal Trails Network, how do we make better connections between communities that are protected routes that aren't on the major roads. And then I just have a question about the process itself. What role does, your first chapter had to do with preserving the existing facilities, and what role does do the major through routes like the interstates have? What role do they play in this regional plan? Are we looking at this from the region's connections to outside areas, or are we looking at actually connecting people within the region?
We do not, and Tony Komornik, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, but we do not pay for any of the interstate maintenance through our target funding on the tip. And so we don't include that in our financially constrained portion, which is the MTP is focused on what we as a region would pay for out of our target money.
Great.
So the state manages that, the interstates.
Thank you.
Like Rick, I cannot find my raise the hand button. I'm Ellie Davis from the COA in Raleigh. I have a couple of things to bring in. It reminds me, I was thinking about what Destiny said about the cultural shift. And I think there's a cultural shift that needs to happen in small urban towns who have no experience with mass transit, who are very skeptical of it. We went with Noah yesterday on a ring and ride, and one of the women told me after that she didn't want to use it because we might bring convicts back with us. Yes. So it's true, it's real, and it's real for seniors, but it's real for everyone. There's not an expectation in the rural communities that there's any way to get anywhere except their cars. The other issue relates to what Rick said about the interstates. We have a lot of concerns about how Route 1 goes through Raleigh, and this might be more of some kind of an advocacy piece. There are some really dangerous intersections that have been on the books of planning for by the state, and we have consistent serious accidents on the Raleigh Road that goes through, it's the Glen Street, Central Street Road that goes through, goes across Route 1. So I think that's a little piece that I don't know where the town is on, needing advocacy or support for those kinds of activities. And the other thing is that there are opportunities, I think, to create in some rural towns, not sidewalks everywhere, but and not just sidewalks near schools, but maybe picking some areas like our downtown area, and within a certain distance create walkable sidewalks, accessible sidewalks. Our COA is, half a block, 2 blocks down from downtown, a great walking thing. So being able to create sort of walkable areas, I guess I would say, to encourage folks to get out. Our seniors are walking more, so being able to access that would be great.
Nice.
Nice. Well, Allie, I do have good news to bring to you in terms of the Glen Street, Central Street Route 1 intersection. I know that there was a recent crash out there, and in response to that, Mass DOT has gone out and improved the signage for that intersection right now in the near term. They've cut back some brush, and the Merrimack Valley MPO recently approved the release of an amendment to its transportation improvement program to move the advertising date for the project that will signalize that intersection forward from next year to this year.
Mhm.
So
Great.
that's moving, and we should be seeing something on the ground at the end of, or at least work started by the end of this year or early next year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. We have a comment in the chat from Angie. In Amesbury, our mobility transportation goals are to fix and maintain what we do have, especially sidewalks. Very good. Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment they'd like to make at this time? Richard. You need to, there you go.
Yeah, I needed to unmute myself. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
my name is Rick Azoliner. I'm with Stantec Consulting, and
Oh, great.
just wanted to bring to your attention that this is great timing. I was just about to reach out to you folks. We're working with the town of North Andover on an initiative to construct a 1.3 mile rail trail along an abandoned railroad corridor, which originates on Osgood Street, just opposite the North Andover High School,
Mm-hmm.
and runs all the way to Marble Ridge Road. It's a very interesting rail corridor. It's been abandoned for a number of years. Some of the corridor is privately owned, which will make for some challenges. So we do have some on-road alternatives if issues cannot be resolved with the abutters. But it's actually a pretty neat corridor and a very scenic corridor because it runs past Stevens Pond and Lake Cochituate. So there's a lot of good opportunity here for a lot of recreational use. So I just wanted to make you aware that we are working on that. We are working with the MassDOT folks to initiate a project need at this point. I expect that to be submitted by the end of this month or thereabouts. And then we'll go from there. As soon as it gets submitted to district, they'll review the project need and hopefully approve it and allow us to continue with the project scope form.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you. We have a couple more comments. Andrew Hurley from the city of Haverhill says that Haverhill seeks to create a more walkable community. Also curious about river access boating would be considered as part of the long range plan. Could be. Good comment. And then Carmenza, I do agree with Destiny to create a culture with an initial conversation among community members, both in Lawrence and Haverhill, highlighting the benefits of public transportation these days, which is free. Thank you, Carmenza. All right. Any other comments before we move on to the next portion? Okay, there'll be more opportunities to participate. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was great input, and that's just that public input and the public input that we're gathering over the summer and into the fall and throughout the rest of the year is a key element of the data that we're collecting to tell the story of our transportation plan. And that story tells us, where we are today, what accessibility does our transportation have now, and where can we improve? And we want to get to, what are the barriers that we are encountering, and how can we develop strategies, objectives, performance measures, and projects to try to break those barriers down and make our transportation system work for everyone. So this next piece of conversation that we're going to have is about barriers to our transportation system. Betsy, if you could go to the next slide. So what do you see as the greatest barriers to our transportation system? And you can think of that as, this makes it hard for me to get from A to B, or I would like to get from A to B in this sort of way by this mode of transportation, but I can't currently. And so an example of that is we have a survey out right now that we'll get to a little bit later and ask you to help us push out. But we had a comment there that someone said that they'd like to be able to take a bus from one part of Methuen to another, but they have to go through Lawrence to get from their origin to destination, and it doesn't make the trip feasible for them, so they end up taking their car. So that route is a barrier, and whether it's the route or the information, that's something that this person is struggling with and doesn't allow them to use public transportation. So we want to hear from you all. Do you have any other examples of this, or what barriers do you see to the transportation system? Yeah,
I
Ellie.
see Ellie.
Sorry.
One of the barriers or conversations was going from one regional transit system to another, because we are so close to the Cater, and someone can't go to Ipswich. So those are some of the things, especially for seniors who don't have other options, that is sometimes a barrier for them. And then I know when I was working in Salisbury, there were conversations about New Hampshire and folks getting into Seabrook and Southern New Hampshire for job opportunities, and and I don't know if that has gotten resolved because I haven't been working there for a couple of years, but I know that was a conversation that was happening.
Thank you. That's great.
Any other suggestions? Anything anyone wants to bring up?
Well, I mean, and actually, I think this conversation has been great in highlighting, some who are identified as institutional obstacles to getting what we need. Just maybe a concrete way of looking at what we're talking about is that there are things, on the transit side, there are things that we have a harder time doing because the infrastructure is not in place to allow us to do it at best. So, as an example, one of the things we're trying to do is optimize our fixed route bus routes so that they're a little more direct and, I like to say, value the time of our riders better. But where the land uses and the sidewalk, their lack of sidewalks don't allow us to stay as straight as we'd like to, forcing us to pull in and out of areas that we wouldn't need to if it was easy to access the bus right from the main corridor. So I think that sort of takes what other people have said and just puts it into that perspective, concrete thing. Likewise, some of the things in the roadway infrastructure, if we had transit signal priority, it would incentivize transit and then make us more competitive with private automobiles.
Great. A great
By the way,
perspective.
also, in terms of intermodalism, I loved Andrew talking about the river. There's opportunities for transit on the river as well. I think, Ellie, I know we were sort of aspirationally wondering about ferry service as we were sort of overlooking the Merrimack River, but that is it is a real asset that we have here that we're not fully utilizing.
Noah, I think that's a really good example also of making sure that all the communication is happening, because there's so many fingers in it. It would be a shame if a town went to support their infrastructure without consulting you, because there would potentially be an opportunity to fund something that would enhance your ability to do transit in their town. So I think that's something we should make sure as we move forward, that we cover all our bases so we don't miss an opportunity.
And actually, one thing, just to throw back at my friends at MVPC, one barrier, and you've heard that they've already been bullied into saying this over and again, is fiscal constraint. And while certainly we can't spend money we don't have, it's also important to recognize that a long-term plan, no long-term plan actually knows what the funding will be in place. We have no clue what the funding will be like in 2050. So if we plan for constraint at its most conservative, we lack the vision. So it's important to put a plan together that does not preclude the opportunity to have discretionary programs we may not have envisioned in the year 2022, and to be bold and forward thinking in just how we will fund all of our transportation infrastructure.
I think that's a great point to make, Noah. I think being bold in our visions and how we're going to achieve and what we need to do achieve that, it will be important. I think that's a great thing. And I also want to point out that while we end up having to create a budget that is fiscally constrained, we usually do provide the universe of projects in the plan, in the appendices. So everyone can see what else we want in our communities that's just sitting there waiting for more money. So that's a really good point. Thank you. All right.
So all the objectives and strategies and performance measures and projects that we come up with through this plan that we're talking about now, how we're going to approach improving our transportation system, go into this plan and influence what gets funded by the transportation improvement program, but it also influences the work that we do. So I think that point that Noah made, when we go out to the communities and we're gathering this information, what are their ideals about what the transportation system could be, and that will help us know what projects to work on and work with our community partners, our regional partners, to make those projects happen in the future. Go to the next slide.
So we thought we'd give you an example of a project. So this is the Bradford Rail Trail extension, and that is currently under construction. You can see in the picture on the right hand, people are already using it. It's really lovely. It's along the river. And this project was included in both the 2016 and 2020 Metropolitan Transportation Plans. It was then funded in the 2020 Transportation Improvement Program, and construction, the notice to proceed was in 2021. So that just gives you an idea of what a fairly fast project does. Some of our projects start like years in advance and then finally get constructed depending on the whole design process. But this one was a fairly quick one. And we're just delighted to see yet another piece of our trail network come to life. Okay, so, and with that, one of the other things we wanted to talk about, because a lot of this is strategies and there are people here from our communities, municipalities who might be able to speak to this. What are some of the greatest stumbling blocks to getting a project off the ground? That sort of leads to what strategies, how our organization can help. But what are the biggest problems that you see with achieving your goals and moving your projects forward? Angie, money. Ellie?
I think for us, it's time. I mean, ultimately it's money, but current staff, to pull them out to create a planning process within the town is really challenging. And I don't know, maybe an idea for money is creating a grant for planning so that a town could have some reimbursement for people to attend that planning process. And I think about it from, department heads, we have no time to get together about anything, let alone planning something that collectively needs to be sent out. The thing we send to you has to show the collaboration, and that's challenging.
Right. We got a couple comments in the chat. Andrew Hurley, he says money for design and pre-engineering. And Jonathan Guzman says definitely funds, capacity, and education.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece, the education, the public education, that, how do we get people to see that these projects could happen and the benefit that they would have in their communities? It's definitely a good point.
All right. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick commercial. Again, we have a survey out right now that we're gonna we'll be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow morning with the link to the survey and this image that you're welcome to share on your social media feeds, please. We would like to reach our goal of getting a wide range of people to take this survey, which it's an important data point for important, to hear the thoughts of people that people have about the transportation system.
All right. And our last question. So this is sort of a, I don't know. Oh, Alicia, you have a question. Your hand is raised.
Yes, I do. Pardon me for being off camera, but I just back to the last question.
Mhm.
How does cities have the lead way to build in community engagement time around these projects, or do these have to be ongoing engagement that are happening? Because there's a lot that needs to happen with communities and engagement. A lot of our communities, if you ask them, they, at least I can speak to Lawrence, they won't necessarily have a vision in mind. And so it's a lot of pictures that you're showing and having conversation around those pictures. And all of that takes time. And so is there time built in for those conversations, or do communities do that on their own time?
You mean for the design process? So I think that the community, before they start a design, has to have decided to do a project based on needs, as well as a lot of community input. I know probably Tony Collins can speak to some of his experiences in Andover and specifically, but you really can't move a project forward and spend town design funds unless you have the community on board, usually in some fashion. So especially the smaller the community, because then there's no city council necessarily. So, but even, your city councilor needs to hear from people within the city, both the people who work there and say, this is important. For example, this is a really dangerous intersection. We've got to do something about it. Or the neighborhood saying, we really have to have our sidewalks fixed. This, we can't stand this anymore. It's got to be fixed. And then from there, your projects are required for a federally funded project. You are required to have public participation and engagement. You actually, in order to even get a project number, you have to prove that you've done some public engagement. So, and then it continues throughout the process in a more formal way. But before you even get to that, you have to show that the community is on board, because they don't want to go down the road by saying, yes, we're going to do this for you. And then all of a sudden, everybody comes out of the woodwork at a meeting saying, we never agreed to this. MassDOT is not interested in that scenario at all. They want to make sure the community is fully on board. So.
Thank you for that.
Sure. And for this, so it's kind of a tickler. We're thinking about, if we were to create a special fund with a small amount of money out of the tip that would help communities move projects quicker, small projects in small ways, what types of things would be useful in your community? I'm thinking, the easiest ones are things like a bike rack or a bus shelter that you can purchase. With federal funds, anything that actually touches the road, like inputting it into the road, then opens up the Pandora's box of right-of-way and the whole design process, which is a much greater process. But there are ways that we could provide funds for cities to be able to purchase things. And I've just given you a couple of examples. But if there are ways in which your community wishes you could like install something or move something faster, and you just need a little bit of capital to purchase the parts, I guess, in order to do it, we'd love to hear what ideas you have. Rick?
I found my button. So I guess one of the things I'm thinking about is, in terms of traffic calming, if it were possible to use funds for a pilot, like a demonstration, maybe a way to, on a temporary basis, create a curb extension or a mini roundabout, a neighborhood roundabout or something like that, that wouldn't actually be a permanent installation, but would be a way for people to see it before you actually went and spent real city funds on it. I think that might be very helpful. Just something that would be something that would be in place for 3 or 6 months so that people could get a sense of how it would work. Because I think
Something like the shared streets program that the state has?
Maybe something like that. Yeah, I haven't actually been involved in that, but something that would be very quick, and when you've got something that is, you've got a short term where the community is planning to do something to the road anyway, and you want to investigate whether a different approach to the alignment of the curbs or something might be good in the future, rather than, I think the communities may be hesitant to take the risk of doing it without knowing whether it's really going to be acceptable to the neighbors and the residents. So some kind of short-term temporary fix for particular intersection or something like that might be very helpful.
Okay. All right. Other ideas? Andrew said enhanced street lighting, bus shelters, road signage, curb cuts. All of those come to mind. Those are great examples too.
I think for us being a small town that has town meeting, because when you talk about all the process for the major grants, it's really challenging when all the things we have to ask for, and so something like this would be really helpful, because if something came up during the year, like right now we're building out some outdoor space, to be able to quickly put a grant together for a bench, or like the other person was saying, I think would be a huge help to people who have town meeting.
All right. Alicia says placemaking. All right.
Betsy, sorry.
Yes,
So
that's okay.
in the beginning, there was also there was a conversation being an ideal project that can be accomplished within a few years. So this wouldn't be an opportunity to have another bridge within the city of Lawrence, right? That would not be
Like an
ideal.
actual bridge over the Merrimack?
Yes.
I don't think that fits into a small project.
Yeah. So,
but I can appreciate the issues that the city is facing with all the congestion coming over the bridges. And I know many of us advocates are hoping to maybe get more people to use alternatives than driving over the bridge.
Honey, yes. And even though it connects, right, it's a little difficult when the Merrimack is is cutting your city.
Oh yeah.
But and a lot of conversations that I've heard in the city in particular is the conversation of turning one-way streets into two-way streets and implementing rotaries in areas that we have seen accidents or occurring within the city. So I feel like those areas, and of course sidewalks is a big thing because we don't see a lot, especially on the neighborhoods that you see mostly single homes. There's a sidewalk and then randomly disappears, so people have to go on the streets. We see that a lot in our districts also.
All right, thank you. We got another suggestion of payment markings and sign enhancements. And I know Tony Collins brought up earlier when we were talking about this wayfinding.
Yes.
Another option, another idea. All right, thank you for those suggestions. So we've essentially reached the end of our presentation, but if there are other topics or ideas that you have that you'd like to share, this is the time to do it. And we'd love to hear from you.
And if not now, please contact us after the meeting anytime. We'd love to hear from you. Whatever.
I don't know if changing the large buttons on pedestrian signs are short term. I don't know how that works, but just from our walk audits with Safe Routes to School, we know that a lot of them, especially those that are closer to routes that kids used to walk to school are not working. So that could be a project too that we take on.
Those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
I know a lot of that infrastructure is old.
Yes.
Rick Tainer?
So in terms of more public engagement and so forth, we'll definitely put the information about the survey on our e-blast from Newburyport Livable Streets, and I will bring it up to the Coastal Trails Committee, which is meeting tonight, and we'll talk about that. But we'd certainly be happy to invite you to, as one of your issue meetings later on in the process in phase 2. To be involved in that from the walking, cycling point of view.
Great. Thank you.
Destiny?
Yeah, so Lawrence Valente is having some climate sessions, and one of the themes that we wanted to focus on was transportation and that mode shift. And I think you guys would be perfect to have those. Those are basically community meetings that like they're part presentation, part conversation. So I think you guys would be perfect for that if that was
Great.
open.
We'd
Yeah,
love to
we-
participate.
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh, we also have, Jonathan said also have the summer farmers markets. Yes, great. Yeah, if Jonathan, if there's like a website where we can look up the dates for those farmers markets, let us know. We'll schedule one to go to. Yeah, Ellie.
Is there any value, I know there's a lot of value in this, to have non-electronic ways of people participating? We have a really hard time with seniors being able to participate, and we're having an event that we are going to have 70 seniors at. I'd love to be able to do something. So
All right, let's definitely talk about that. We can print one out. We can print them out, or we can try to find, we should look into that, Tony, and make sure we have something, another option.
Yeah. Would Ellie, do you think like a printed survey would, or
That's always hard, because then
Yeah.
it's really hard to get all the information out of it. And I mean, one of the things I can try to do is have stuff set up on laptops and walk people through them. It just takes longer. So I mean, maybe that's what I'll do, is do some of that at events, just bring a couple of laptops and ask people to fill out the survey, and then it will at least move us through on some of them.
yeah,
But I just know there has to be a way to figure this
Yeah.
out.
You know,
But
we could also do some posters that you could have at the senior center or at your events, and you could just continue using them if you're doing like 3 events or something like that, and people can put stickers on them, and we can ask all the questions that we ask in the survey, but it's more of a quick put your sticker on where it's where your priority is.
I also wonder if I might be able to get some volunteers who'd be willing to key in paper surveys, and that way we could get them into your system that will, collapse all the data for you. Anyway, I'll bring.
We can
something
talk
out
about
of it
that
over
later
here.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
because I think
great.
that's in terms of involvement, it would be really great to make sure we get that surveys back from seniors.
Right. We'd love to hear from them. So I think you're not alone. So it's good that you're representing that group here today,
Okay, thanks.
because I'm sure it's a question that a lot of the other senior centers probably have. So thank you.
Is there an end by date for data collection?
the public comment period we put through the end of September.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
So you said you're gonna send the surveys out?
We'll
Yeah,
send the
so
link.
after you, sorry, after you leave this meeting, a link should pop up in your browser. Sorry.
Okay. And it's in, and how many languages is it in?
It's in Spanish and Chinese and English.
Okay. All right.
So maybe Moy would be willing to also send that out. We should contact her and ask her.
Yeah, I'll ask her because she's Vietnamese, so I don't know if there's a difference in the characters. I'll ask.
Oh, right. She said that she's told me in the past that doing things in Chinese would work for the folks who speak Vietnamese, but I don't know. We might as well ask again.
Yeah, I'll ask again.
Any other questions, comments, ideas? All right, well, this has been fantastic and we really appreciate your participation. And we will be in touch soon. So again, you'll get the link to the survey after when you leave, and I hope you all fill it out. Thank you. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Betsy.
You're welcome.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good weekend.
Thank
everybody.
you.
I guess I'll just end the session and I think that it'll then, I'll
Yeah.
stop the recording. Stop.